In the next session, Sonnedix will explore how we use electricity every day and how this may be impacting climate change. They'll introduce the topic of solar energy, show how converting the sun's rays into energy can provide us with cleaner and greener electricity. Sonnedix is an independent solar power producer, developing, building and operating solar plants across the globe.
Perfect. So thank you for that introduction. That was amazing. Just to reiterate that point, hi everyone, I'm Beth and I work for Sonnedix, so we're a solar power producer, and I'm going to talk to you today just a bit about solar energy, about climate change, and just to introduce you to this topic during this Youth Climate Summit. So I'm so glad this sort of thing is around, and for Sonnedix, we were really excited to be involved and to share our message and tell you a little bit about what we do and why it's so important in the world of climate change. So we're going to get started. If you do have any questions, you're welcome to enter those, and at the end we'll go through those and I'll get the team to send some of them to me to answer. So feel free to send those in as we go. So we're going to talk a little bit about electricity to start off with. So first of all, I want you to imagine a world with no electricity, which is pretty hard to think about considering how much we use electricity every day. If you want to watch TV, if you want to join on to this webinar, this presentation about Sonnedix, you would all need electricity. If you want to cook your dinner at home, if you want to put something in the microwave, everything you do requires this thing called electricity to make it work and to power it up. So imagine if there was no electricity at all, just like it used to be about 100, 150 years ago. So you'd need a lot of candlelight, okay? If you wanted to eat, if you wanted to read a book, if you wanted to walk around the house, you would need candlelight to make sure that you could do all of those things safely and just with a little bit of ease. You'd have nowhere to store your food, like a fridge. The fridges that we have at home that keep our food nice and cold, they would not exist. You would need to keep things in something called a pantry, like you can see on the picture there. You'd have special storage cabinets for meat as well, but things would go off really, really quickly. So you'd have to eat things and just try not to waste like we're able to do now. You'd also have lots of fires. So fires would not only keep you warm, if it was really cold in the winter, you'd be able to put the fire on to keep you warm, but it would also allow you to cook your food. So ovens were all powered by fire, and you'd have a metal plate on top to put your pans on, or you could just cook over the open fires like we might do with some marshmallows. And then you've got washing as well. This thing here is called a washboard. And believe it or not, there were no washing machines without electricity. You'd have to hand wash everything by rubbing the clothes up and down on this washboard here to try and get some of the dirt off. As you can imagine, this took a really long time. And it's much easier nowadays to put things in the washing machine, click the button and turn it on. But people did cope, and people coped without electricity. But obviously today, that's something that we would probably find quite difficult to do. We rely on electricity really, really heavily, and we don't even realize it sometimes. So we're going to take a closer look at electricity before we talk about the special type of electricity that we produce at Sonnedix. So first of all, I'm going to show you this guy on the screen here. He is called Benjamin Franklin. And he, back in the 1800s, started to think about the idea of electricity and what it means and how we can possibly use it. And this then led to the first ever streetlight, which was put on the streets towards the end of the 1800s. And this was actually in London. So the first streetlight in the entire world was in London. And as you can see, loads of crowds gathered to see it, and it was a real big breakthrough, which seems pretty crazy to think about at the moment, since the street lights are absolutely everywhere. And then that brings us more to the modern day, where there's electricity in everything we use. We can switch the light on in the morning when we wake up. We can use an electric toothbrush to brush our teeth. We can go and take some food and some milk for our cereal from the fridge, which has been heated by electricity, and it's now a very big part of our lives. But to make electricity, to have it available for us in those plug sockets, we have to generate it, okay? We have to produce it. And we often do that through something called a power plant, which you can see on the side there. And now this is where solar energy and this different sort of electricity comes into play, okay? Because these power plants here can be really, really damaging for the environment, and they can be really harmful and lead to something that we call climate change, which I'm going to think you've heard of because of this summit. But if you haven't, we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But here you go. Here's our picture of the power plant, okay? And what we do is most of the buildings like this that you'll see will be using things like coal or gas. And what they do is they burn them and it produces energy and makes us electricity. It runs through all of those wires that you see and goes straight into everybody's homes and all of our workplaces so that we can use it to power everything that we need. Okay, the first ever power plant was actually opened in New York, so over in America in 1882. Now we need to be careful with this electricity, okay, because what is happening at the moment is as we burn all of this coal and this gas that we're using to make electricity, we're actually releasing these really harmful chemicals into the atmosphere. And what's happening is actually causing the earth to heat up. Okay, so our temperature, everything around us is warming up slowly and slowly and slowly. And this is a result of all of these things that are coming out of the power plants. They're trapping all of this heat in. So when the sun shines on us, everything gets trapped. It's a bit like a greenhouse, okay, and it's called the greenhouse effect. And that's heating up the planet. You might have noticed that we've had some nice warm summers recently, and we've had some really hot days. Even at the moment, it's still quite warm to how it should be in November. And that's all because of this global warming, which is leading to climate change. Okay, so what does this look like? So we've heard of the word climate change, and obviously this is the Youth Climate Summit, so we're here to learn all about it at the moment. Now, climate change, as I said, is everything's getting hotter and hotter over time. And obviously this isn't just affecting us. We might have to put some more sun cream on or drink some more water as everything gets warmer, but it's also affecting the planet as well. What do you think might be happening to the polar bears? They live in something called the Arctic, so that's right up north at the top of the globe. And they live in an area which is covered by snow and by ice and lots of water. Now, what's happening is as it's getting warmer and warmer, all of that ice is melting, the snow is melting, and our polar bears have nowhere to live anymore. And then we've got a koala here in the middle. You might have heard of these. These go and live in Australia, so on the other side of the globe. And these are being impacted because as everything's getting hotter and drier, there's lots of fires going about. You might have heard about some of the fires that were happening in Australia earlier this year. And that's killing all of the koalas' homes and making it really difficult for them to live. And then lastly, you've got this green sea turtle here on the side. Now, sea turtles actually lay their eggs on land. You might have seen some of the videos of them crawling up the sand, going up and laying their eggs in the nests, and they cover the sand all back over the eggs, and then they go back into the ocean. Now, a fun fact about sea turtles is actually that however warm the sand is that their eggs are staying in actually determines whether it's a baby boy or a baby girl turtle, okay? Now, as climate change is happening and everything's getting warmer, the eggs and their nests are all getting warmer as well, which means there's lots of baby girl turtles and far less baby boys. Okay, so climate change is happening absolutely everywhere. So how does this link back to this electricity that we were talking about at the start? Now, as I said, we need this electricity, okay? But as we're producing it at the moment, as we're making electricity with this coal and this gas and all of those big plants that I was showing you earlier, it's really harming the planet and it's leading to this climate change. So can we produce electricity in a different way? Can we do it in a way that doesn't hurt the koalas, the polar bears, the sea turtles, and doesn't make this climate change happen? Well, the answer is yes, thankfully. We can do it in quite a few different ways, and a few of them are on the screen now. So you've got wind there. You might have seen some wind turbines. If you're driving out into the countryside, you'll see some of these. We've also got water. This is using the power of the water to go through and create electricity. And then finally, you've got solar, which is exactly what we do at Sonnedix. And this is actually a picture from one of our solar plants. So what is solar energy? Now, it's very, very, very complex. We have a whole team of specialist engineers who help to make sure that we can create our electricity. But essentially what it is the sunlight shines down. You'll see all of those fields of solar panels. The sunlight hits those panels. The panels take that light and they convert it into energy, which forms electricity. And then that is taken off and shipped through all of those wires and those lines, all the way through to our houses and our buildings and our shops and our workplaces, so that we can use the electricity. Okay, now what happens inside of those solar panels is very, very complex. And it was actually Albert Einstein, who you might have heard of, that really kind of got that working and found out how to do it. And he won something called a Nobel Prize in 1921 for his work there. So he really was clever with his physics and worked out how he could use sunlight to create electricity. And as I said, we have a whole team of engineers to do this. So it's very, very complex. But here's a fun fact for you. So it takes sunlight about 8 minutes and 20 seconds to travel all the way from the sun to the surface of our Earth and onto our solar panels. So really, really quick, considering how far away the sun is. Now, why do we need solar energy? So this is a picture of, again, one of our solar plants, and this is over in Italy. And as you can see there, they're all the panels that I was talking about, where the sunlight would shine down, and inside those panels is where all the magic happens and the electricity is created. And as I said, the way it's created at the moment is really harmful to the planet. So we've been doing this to try and make sure we have a better impact on the animals and the people and the plants that live on our planet. So why is that? Well, we're doing it for climate change. Okay, as I said, doing it this way and creating electricity with solar energy or wind or with water stops all of those harmful chemicals from going out into the atmosphere and into the air around us. It's also better for the animals. So they haven't got to worry about all this pollution that's in the air. And this solar here, you can actually have the animals living around it. So on some of our solar plants, we have sheep that roam the fields, and they actually help us by eating the grass and keeping it nice and short for us. And we have passages so rabbits can run through and squirrels can run through and all of those sorts of things. There's less pollution. Okay, so we have these panels up, they're up and running, they're creating electricity for us to watch our TVs, and they're not causing as much harm at all in terms of pollution. And finally, the sun won't run out. This is one of the big problems with how we currently make our electricity, is this coal that we use and that we burn to make electricity is running out. We haven't got enough of it left. Whereas the sun, it's going to be around for a pretty long time. And that means we can continue to create electricity for as long as we would like. So what does the future look like? Now, solar energy is not just being used like in this picture here, where it's all laying out in the field. It can be used in a number of different ways, and I'm going to put some up on the screen for you. You've got some blinds here on the left. Imagine if your windows had blinds on them that actually could take in some of the sun and use it to power your room. What if we put it on planes? We could put solar panels on the top of planes and they could create their own electricity as they fly. What about on cars as well? You might have seen some of the cars that plug in, the hybrid cars, the fully electric cars that you might have seen. What if we put the solar panels on top of them and they could create even more electricity and charge up their batteries so you can drive even further? And what about on roof tiles? You might have seen that on some of the homes near where you live, there's some solar panels sitting on the top of the roof. Now, what if we could make them into roof tiles instead, and then every house could have them? So there's a lot of things to think about there, and I'm sure you can come up with some more ideas and discuss it with your classmates. Now, our vision is to build a really bright future. Okay, we want to continue to make this clean, this green energy and electricity so that we can watch TV, but not have an impact on the environment. And we want everyone to become leaders in climate change and to help spread the word and be part of this climate change solution. So we're going to ask you to make a pledge. Okay, we want you to make a pledge today of something that you think you can do to help climate change. Now, it doesn't have to be as big as building a solar plant like we're doing at Sonnedix, but it can be anything that you want to do. And you're more than welcome to share that with us if you want to on the email address that's on screen. We'd love to hear from you. And then finally, we want to thank you for coming and listening today. This is a really exciting week of activities that the Summit have put on. And obviously, we're really grateful to be part of it. Now, we've got some resources. If you want to use them, you can go to our website at the bottom there. And there's some classroom activities about solar energy and about climate change that you're more than welcome to do if you want to. Okay, so the option is always there. But for now, we've got 4 minutes left, I believe, and I'm more than happy to take any questions that you might have. So feel free to log them and the team will be able to pass them over to me. Let's have a look and see if we've got some questions. Okay. How do we get solar panels on our school? This is a great one, and this is one that I actually answered for the older children earlier today. And this is a case of just asking your head teacher, okay, because anyone can get solar panels on their homes, on their schools, on their office, on their restaurant. You just have to buy them and get them all fitted like you would do if you're getting a new TV set or something like that. So if you talk to your teachers or talk to your head teacher, you can ask them, why don't we get solar panels on our school? And then we can create our own cleaner electricity. And that would be a really good way to help. Another question we've got, can you make a type of tarmac for roads with solar? As we have so many roads and tarmac, it would be good to produce electricity. That is an incredible suggestion. And that's definitely something that I think can be innovated in the future. That's an amazing one. And this is the sort of innovation that we're hoping to inspire. So that is amazing. I believe they have started to do some solar roads. So they've started to put some panels in there, but I don't think they've done it with tarmac. So that's a really good suggestion. I think we can look into that a little bit further. Is solar in the field better than on the house? Yes and no. Okay, so it does the exact same thing in the field as it does on the house. It takes in the sunlight and it makes electricity. The only good thing about the field is it's bigger and you can have more and more and more. Okay, that's the only difference, is you can have a huge amount of panels, whereas you can only have a few on the top of your house because it's a smaller space. But it's exactly the same, so it's just as good to have them on the house as in a field. How much of our electricity do we get from solar at the moment? That's a very good question, and I don't actually know off the top of my head. However, earlier this year, it was thought that over half of our electricity in the UK came from a renewable source. So that's from either solar, from wind, from water, all of those different ways that I was talking about. It was actually bigger than it was for coal and those nasty fossil fuel ones instead. So it was actually more. I don't know how much specifically from solar at the moment. And the last question here that we've got, solar panels have been around for a while. Why don't more people or governments prioritize them? Very good question. That's one of the biggest ways that solar energy can grow, is by governments really investing in them and giving them lots of money and making sure they can build as many as they can. And as you see there, that hasn't been happening as much as we would like it to. And it's because governments have lots of different kind of opinions on that. They like to spend their money here and there and here, and they've got lots of priorities to sort out. So it's a really, really difficult one. And it's mainly because they've got lots of different priorities, but it's one of the best things that we can do is give more money to solar energy, build more solar plants, to wind as well, and to water, and make sure we're getting as much clean energy as we possibly can. So there we go. Are there any more questions? Because I think that's the 5 that were on the list there. So feel free to send any last minute ones if you want. Got 2 minutes left. But if not, guys, feel free to send in any pledges that you have and any questions to that email address that I showed. Or feel free to just get in touch with Sonnedix. You'll see our website, and we're more than happy to get back to you. Okay, and thank you again for listening to this workshop today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit.